Dearly redheaded, we are choosing consciousness today to get through this thing called grief. Interesting word, grief. It means love, which makes for a mighty good joke. But I'm here to tell you, there's nothing else. Just joy. And if the big picture tends to bring you down, go crazy once your life goes. Woo!
Third episode with Jim Mendrinos. My heart is, it's actually, as opposed to beating really fast, it's actually really slowed the fuck down. So it's weird.
Okay.
All right. Is this, I am not embarrassed by anything you said. Is this what you meant by take the gloves off, or are you harboring more that you want to say that I said?
No. It's, you know, this is pretty much it. The what you said, the exact verbiage, who cares? You know, who cares? That's you said it, and okay. But I would like to think that none of us are going to be judged by who we are at our worst moments. I would like to think that that's a courtesy we'd give to each other. You know, and so there's no reason to. It's not like I'm going to bring up quotes and embarrass you. It's the level of behavior. I don't know if you were quite aware that you were that confrontational. I don't know if you were aware that you were being deliberately mean. You know, I understand why. You know, all these things are, you know, you needed to distract from the big pain you were feeling. I get it. It's one of the most human things on the planet. We lash out when we feel we're not in control, you know, but a lot of people don't want to be reminded of that kind of stuff.
I, in my case, and not now, because I want to continue our personal and professional relationship. So I think at some point you need to tell me, because I would like to know. In the case of another person I raged against, I'll it's not an analogy. So, but there was an aide that towards the end, when I raged on the fourth or fifth day, whenever it was a very conscious rage against what my unconscious was. It was against my ex. It was against my roommate. It was against a friend of mine's husband who was abusing her. It was against an aide that had been in my life for a number of months that was getting inappropriately attached to my mother and just saying really cruel things to me about my mother's attachment to her. But I couldn't not have the aide involved because my mother was dying, and I knew for weeks that it was getting to me, but I made the decision to need the help more than what was coming out of her pie hole. So yep. The night my mom died, at that point, it was May 2nd, and I knew enough to ask the aide to leave because I knew if she didn't, it wasn't going to be pretty. That's the last cognizance I had of how angry I was. And this is literally the night my mom died. She died around 10 o'clock. And by midnight, I was like asking the aide to leave. And the fly in the ointment was I wasn't supposed to be alone, and I was. I then came to learn that the powers in my life at the time made the aide come back to check on me. And I must have given this woman a piece of my mind, which I also don't remember. I just remember her being a part of the rage in my head when I was, that rage was, and I don't know if you know, I ended up taking a third of the contents of my home and throwing it outside.
Yep.
All right. So that was the 8th. So I was in this state of mind probably from the 3rd to the 8th. In and out of consciousness. I had done a lot of damage to my liver and kidneys, so I went in the hospital. It took a few days for me to come out of that hallucinating, delusional stage. And then once my mind came back, it came back meaning I was me sans the stuff I forgot and didn't know that I did. So there's a portion of the stuff that I know that I did, and there's a portion that I have no recollection of. And
that all makes sense.
I'm sorry?
That all makes sense.
I know, and I got very, very, so I, and I forget what I told you. So I remember Mother's Day. My sons came in to see me, and they were just horrified. They were horrified and scared, and I had my wits about me because I hadn't been eating and hadn't been drinking, so I was hydrated, and I had an idea of the agony I caused, but not the full extent. I didn't know the full extent until I was able to go back home, quite frankly, and see the damage I had done. But nothing I did scared me as nearly as much as I scared others. It was actually, ironically, very cathartic and a big clearing of my unconscious. So I got very lucky when I came out of the hospital, and this is the part that is embarrassing, but you know it. I think Brian knows it. So once my livers and kidneys recovered, and I was in the hospital for a week medically, I thought I was going home. And I got the news that I wasn't going home. That I was going into the psychiatric aspect of the hospital where they allowed patients to admit themselves. So they kind of like made that like the upside, that I was going into the voluntary submission wing. And I'm like, for what? Like, I knew my history of CPTSD. I would have preferred a CPTSD facility, but what I was told, which wasn't true, was that they looked at it as a suicide attempt coupled with this miraculous crossover to bipolar, which I'm not and never have been, and that's no disrespect. I know how many creatives have struggles with bipolar and borderline and other things, so I don't want to. I get that that's also trauma-induced, but in my case, it was, I hate to say it was classic CPTSD rage, but I didn't know that then because those other people were dead set on it being something it wasn't. And the sad part about it for me was, as much as my mother's death was devastating, I was having incredible spiritual and ascension experiences as a result of knowing she was leaving her body. And I think that aided, and the people who made the decision to put me in the hospital, that aided in their desire for me to be in the hospital, which is just sad because it couldn't have been further from the truth. The spirituality that comes out of losing somebody is quite beautiful. So there was this massive, horrific part, and then there was this part that the upside of it, that it just fueled me looking like there was something wrong. And you said to me when we spoke yesterday that that's where I think your compassion comes in, because you've known creatives and seen the agitation. I'm sure you've seen the unimaginable, right?
Yep. It's one of these things where the more creative somebody is, I think the more in tune they are with the emotions of not only themselves but the world. And I think the more they kind of live and fall with them. I know that's a great generalization, and a whole lot of people will be going that's hokey, but I do believe that artists feel more, feel deeper, and show more empathy than people who are not artists.
Okay. And I just caught something that I really wanted to talk about. Are we going to be able, how much, can this be a long episode? Because there's something I don't want to But just
Yeah.
where our
Yeah, we
well,
make the rules.
okay, and Jim, this just I was just reminded. First of all, I want to thank you because you've made it. It's just amazing that this is the first time that I mentioned the hospital, and I've got you on here with me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It was awful. It was one of the most horrible experiences of my life, coupled with some of the best. And I don't mean in the hospital. And trust me, and when I roast, I don't go mean. I go reality, just reality. I don't want anybody to bleed out. And when I roast myself after writing this book, it's basically because of what I endured, not because whatever. Enough said. But here's the thing about you that I want people to know. So you describe the upside of comedy and what you've been able to do for others, but talk about that life-changing event. I don't remember when it happened, a handful of years ago.
Yeah.
You were on a train.
2014.
I'm sorry?
Yeah. 2014. So the short form, so I don't dwell on it because I try not to dwell on it, is in 2014. I was on a train heading from New York down to Florida. And there's so much on this I'm grateful for. My current wife and at that time fiance and her daughter had gone down on the same train the day before. I had to do a gig that night, so I had to take the train down the next day. But we all wanted to take the train back together so we could have that experience. And the train down, somebody somewhere had thrown some debris on the tracks. And the train had to stop incredibly suddenly. And everybody who was awake just simply put their hand on the seat in front of them and were perfectly fine. But those of us that were asleep were thrown around like pinballs. And my face hit the inside glass, at an enormous speed. And when the paramedics came in, they did the concussion protocol in it. And the concussion protocol basically is they ask you a whole bunch of questions, and judging on how swiftly and how confidently you answer them, they make a snap judgment whether or not you have a concussion. So it's like, what's your mother's maiden name? Where'd you grow up? Who was your best friend in high school? It's those kinds of questions. They don't know the answers. I've been a lifelong comedian and actor and writer and improviser. And in improv, one of the things you get is if somebody asks a question, you make shit up on the spot. So they ask all these questions and I'm answering them like I'm perfectly fine. And, they're like, oh, he's fine. And by the next day, I was showing signs of like, he's pretty badly concussed. And you don't think of it much. I mean, I played high school football. I played a little bit of sports growing up. I've been concussed before. It's not that big a deal, but it was bad. I stopped remembering where I lived. I would go to the wrong addresses. I would go to old addresses thinking I was home. And then when I get there, I'd go, something's wrong here. And why doesn't my key work? That kind of shit. And then, I forgot how to read and write, which for a writer, that's kind of essential. And somebody, they had to reteach me how to read and write. On top of all of this, I was being misdiagnosed at the same time. I walked into my doctor and I said, hey, I think I had this train accident a couple of weeks ago. I think I'm concussed. I think there's a problem. And they said, well, you're not showing signs of concussion, but we think you might have early onset dementia, which is pretty much a death sentence. And, they would not move from that diagnosis at all. It took me almost 9 months of fighting to get seen by a concussion specialist. And when I was, it literally was, oh yeah, you got a bad one. Holy shit. And then once I was treated, I'd been misdiagnosed for so long and did so many things wrong early in the concussion that it took forever for me to get right. By 2017, I was still showing symptoms 3 years later. It really wasn't until the pandemic that I got totally right, because I was forced to kind of sit in a place. I mean, they told me, stop going on the road, stop getting on airplanes. The airplanes exacerbate, the brain imbalances, don't do it. So for a couple of years, I was trying not to fly. So I started, that's when I started the physical production company in New Jersey, figuring, oh, you know what, I'll just start a production company and I'll work at that instead of being on the road, and that'll give me time to heal, not realizing stress was as bad as everything else. And it took forever for me to heal. And it taught me patience. It taught me humility. It was a necessary, it was a necessary healing time that I had to take. But it was awful. And we all go through some shit. That was pretty much about the worst of it for me.
And so how did you support yourself during that time when you couldn't write?
I was doing local gigs. I was, the actual not being able to write part, very luckily, I'm a stubborn son of a bitch. And when I realized that I didn't recognize the letters anymore, I went whole hog and relearning how to read and write. That was, I think, totally about 5 months till I got functional again. And those 5 months were the roughest 5 months of it. A lot of it was, my lady pitching in. I mean, in the middle of it, I was living in the city. In the middle of it, she sat me down one day and she went, "You're moving in with me." And I'm like, "Why?" And she goes, "Because you can't take care of yourself. You don't know where home is half the time. You got to be here." And she would drive me to gigs, and I'd be on stage and people would be going, "Wow, we haven't heard people do Dan Quayle material in years." And they're like, "Yeah, that's what I can remember today."
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, it was, people thought I was doing a nostalgia thing. It was, no, that's the shit I remember right now. And a lot of it, I was doing it by fumes. I was doing a lot of it by memory, sense memory, and it took forever. It did, it wasn't until once they got me in the concussion protocols, they didn't tell me. So ultimately, my brain had shifted in my cranium. It was not sitting in the right position. The fluid wasn't balancing it out. Your brain floats in fluid. And it wasn't sitting correctly, and part of the brain was touching the actual skull. So if I was moving too fast, if I got a bump, if I fell down, I was reconcussing myself because there was no buffer zone. And it wasn't until the pandemic that they did one of those x-rays and said, "Okay, it's reset. It's finally where it needs to be." And that was 8 years after the event, essentially.
And how did they determine that?
It's how your brain sets in the fluid. So on one of those CAT scans,
Okay.
MRIs, I don't know what those machines are called.
Okay.
One of the big ones where they get to measure that stuff is, that's the one where they found that out. And that was, a whole lot of tests that weren't fun. A whole lot of, it broke me financially. Like everything I had saved just went to staying alive. It was ugly. But I'm still here, so joke's on them.
Do you feel 100% or 82.5 or?
You know what? I don't think I'm ever going to feel 100% ever again, just because, there's some fear of doing things now that I never had, because I lived my life very, some would say reckless, but unafraid. You know, tasted all the wine, danced with all the women. All of it just to live every ounce of life. And then now I'm like, well, is it safe if I do that? And I kind of feel like it took away a little bit of my superpower, because now I have that question of, is this safe to do? Which I never had when I was younger.
Apparently that's why you were in Mexico when you were 12.
Well, that and the tamales. There's a couple of reasons.
Any post-traumatic stress?
I'm sure there is, but I don't much like trains. I'll be honest with you.
There's that.
I'll do my best to avoid them, but I still ride them. I haven't been on an Amtrak since then, and I don't know when or if I would. But yeah, I've been on Jersey Transit. I've been on Metro North. I've been on, the New York City subway. So it's not the train. It might be, I just don't want to go back on Amtrak.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rumor has it that one of those trains that you mentioned, friend of a friend that works for them, said very often people will call in, hey, looks like a tree's going to fall onto the tracks, try to help be proactive about the tracks not being obstructed, and they're not very proactive about that kind of stuff. No.
But also, who's throwing shit on the tracks? Why? What idiot is doing that?
So what happened in your case, someone did deliberately?
Oh, yeah. We were going around a bend, and there was, I think they said it was a log that somebody threw onto the track that could have caused the train to derail.
It sounds like you stepped into a tunnel. Did you change locations?
I think my phone is searching for Wi-Fi.
There you go. It's better.
All right. Yeah. Technology stuff is not fun, but the nice part about it is I feel like I have my life back. I feel like I'm working again. I feel like I'm doing the things I want to do again. So that's good. A little bit of fear. Hopefully I'll get past that again. But it's going to take some time.
Yeah, when you told me the story, I can't imagine that fear. And I know you are like a dog with a bone, stubborn. So a couple weeks ago, I had on a psychologist, Dr. Stein. He owns the Neurobehavioral Center in Lancaster, PA, and his specialty is brain injury. I don't know. I mean, you're obviously your own guru, but he was describing that how important relearning and retraining and
yeah. I mean, it was. I almost feel like I had to relearn everything I've done again. Some things haven't come back. I still, I used to play guitar poorly. Let's be honest about it. I wasn't great at it, but now my hands will go to form a G and I'll put a D. It's like something's still crossed in my head. So, I gotta finish that. It's not fun.
Yeah. He had said, and I hope I'm remembering it correctly, that you took a direct hit to the front of your skull, front of your head, and then the part of the brain most susceptible to brain injury is the prefrontal cortex, which you probably already know.
Yep. But, here's the thing. When they were misdiagnosing me, they were making it sound like I was going to be dead, within 2 or 3 years. The nice thing is I still, every year, on the anniversary of when the doctor told me that. Every year since I passed that number, I text him to tell him I'm still here, which is my way of reminding him he's an asshole.
Yeah, it's amazing what you think doctors should know that you've got to learn yourself.
Yeah.
It makes things that make you go, do you write about, do you make that trauma funny or no?
I have on occasion. It's my, and you know this because you've seen me, my act is a lot of storytelling, so when I choose to do that story, I do it. I just don't choose to do it that much because there's so much more that I'm interested in right now. So much more that's interesting right now. I will admit that if you came out to see me recently, a lot of it's about all the strange things that are happening to my physical body as I'm getting older. That's been very fun for me to talk about on stage. So the short answer is yes, I've written about it, and yes, I've made it funny, but I don't really choose to bring it out because my stand-up is very selfish, and I talk about the stuff that kind of brings me joy.
Yep. I have an innate need to make what happened to me funny. And that's how I roast. I don't think I cross over into the mean arena, and that's what breaks my heart about what I may have said to you.
Well, I think you just wanted to use the word roast, and I was using it literally, and you weren't.
Well, it just the thought of hurting your feelings.
Oh, can I be really clear? I'm way too stubborn for you to hurt my feelings. You said I want you to do the roast, and I said no. And neither one of us was going to move each other at the time. You were adamant that I was going to do it, and I was like, yeah, okay. When she's a little more lucid, she's going to understand I'm not doing shit I don't want to do.
Yeah, and I was having a very different experience about it, and it intrigues me because all this brain shit intrigues me. I think you know that.
Yeah. So
I just can never get enough of how the brain processes, and that situation it speaks to the different levels of consciousness.
Yeah.
And I find very few people that'll spitball with me when it comes to that. The nice thing about it is the various conversations I've had over these last several weeks is I'm just getting to a point in my own head that I have an opinion on what I you had to retrain your brain. I've had to take years of psychological damage and rehab my brain. And it's just anybody that's had these fairly unique experiences, I want to exploit it and learn about it.
Yep.
Anyway, you wanna tell a joke, Jim?
I don't think this is that kind of podcast today. But people can find me online and see.
Jokes. Please say.
Worldsbestcomic.com. You can go there and you can find all the links to all the things.
And how much are you performing these days?
A lot. In 2021, we closed the studio. In 2023, December of 2023, I closed the comedy club I was running. And since then, it is just performing and writing. That's all I'm doing. So, yeah, I'm on all the time.
Do you think there's a market for it? And I'm selfishly asking, but I'm also ignorant asking. How would I take all that I've written and make it pertinent? I mean, are the days gone where I can just submit jokes? Can I submit jokes to you, or is that an unfair question to ask publicly?
Well, I only do my own stuff, obviously, because that's my ego. It has nothing to do with the fact that other people can't write great jokes for me. They could. I just got this ginormous ego that's not in check. But more importantly, the way to get clients as a writer is literally to be in clubs and walk up to somebody and go, "Hey, I got some ideas for jokes if you ever want to write together." Let them know it's business, obviously. But, I've often found the direct way of walking up to somebody going, "Hey, you're doing this. I can help," can get you more clients than you think it can.
I wish I had thought about that prior to this, man. There's a few people I'd love to write for.
Yeah.
One person I'd love to write for is Taylor Tomlinson.
Approaching them is the first step.
Yeah, I know. I just it's like this light dawns on Marblehead situation. I think you know how obtuse I am. Mm-hmm. You had said to me, and I don't. This is not meant to be. I'm so aware now that I'm aware that I'm controversial, obtuse, intense, all that stuff. But one thing you said to me that made my heart shine was when I found you back in Jersey a couple years ago. You went back into your notes, and you still had notes on all your students. And do you remember what you told me your notes said about me?
No.
Intelligent.
No.
You said that and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that was my type of humor, not me being intelligent, but that was the type of humor that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
And then, and I can tell Jim some of my sapiosexual jokes. Sapiosexual, Jim. Wait, where are we in time? Are we over?
32 minutes.
We're at 32 minutes. All right, Jim. You know that my persona as Magdalene, I want to be a sapiosexual dominatrix. How that's going to manifest, I don't know yet. I have some ideas. And she's also a romantic tantric. And I have a very sexual sense of humor. I don't know if you know that. So one of my jokes is asking, I have this fascination, I think with very intelligent men, which is part of my interest in male comedians. Fair?
Yeah.
So one of my jokes that I've said 100 times on here is, what's the square root of 4,761?
Don't know.
Take a guess, knowing me.
Probably 69.
There you go. Thank you, Jim Mendrinos. There we go. Yeah. So, and I also this weekend was having some quantum entanglements, and it's I was writing jokes about that being that I want to tie someone up, and it just goes from there. They're very higher dimensional jokes that I don't really. I put you on the spot because you're you. My goal is not to make people feel dumb. I want to make them feel like they're in on the joke versus not in on the joke.
Yep.
So thank you. So the quantum entanglements, I had a field day with what it means literally to be able to cross energies with people, and I'm learning that like these energy crossovers that I have with both people that have passed on and that are conscious, it's just amazing. Do you find, because of your experiences and the trauma on your brain, that you're having some increased spiritual or intuitive experiences?
That's not been my experience, but I two things. One, I'm probably, admittedly, singular focused when I'm working on things. So since I tend to move from project to project, I really don't have a lot of time for that kind of external awareness, and B, I also, I think as a product of being brought up in two churches at the same time when I was a kid, so you mentioned the word spiritual to me, and I will run from you. Like if you begin talking anything religious, I'm there like, yeah, there's a baseball game I need to watch, or there's a nose I need to pick, but there is something more interesting going on. So I tend to not focus on spiritual at all.
Okay, but are you a guided person? Like,
what do you mean by guided person?
Well, I experience you as incredibly compassionate. That's the way I've experienced you, especially in light of our experiences together. But I'm just wondering if that's innate in you, or if because it amazes me. Several things about this amaze me, and I'm sort of just spitballing. The way that you can embody a Joan Rivers or a Rodney Dangerfield or whoever the fuck you're writing for now reminds me a lot of what I wish I had done, because I got a little envy where that's concerned. But that requires you to have quite the relationship with other people's consciousness or your higher self or the collective unconscious. And it just is something you seem to do innately and not have put the kind of thought that I just put into it.
Yeah, I don't think I put any thought into it, to be honest with you. I understand the work, and I'm able to do it quite effortlessly. And like I said, I do run from anything that builds itself up as spiritual, or this is meditative, or this is spiritual, or this is religious. I'm like, nah. It's been my experience, and only my experience, that most of the people that have been the biggest assholes in my life have wrapped themselves around with a blanket of spirituality or religiousness, and it gave them an excuse to be the way they are. So I've kind of been like, no, I don't believe you. I don't think any of this is real. And that's not me saying I don't think there should be religion. Whatever you need for comfort, whatever you need to make you a better person, I want you to go for it. I know automatically, if you tell me that, I think it would be good for you, I think you should do this, I automatically put you in, like, you proselytize, I want nothing to do with you. And that's just the way I've been with religion, just because I had such bad experiences with it. And that's just me. I'm not judging anybody. Everyone go do you. Everyone listening to the 8.5 listeners, I think you said at the top of the first episode, Jeff, go do you. Just for me, that's never going to be part of my conditioning.
So what's not real? Do you feel this is a simulation?
What, the world?
Yeah.
No, I think the world is real. I don't think religion is real. I don't think, I don't think there's a higher power. I don't think there's a greater connection to the universe. I do think we're all independent. You can choose to be good or you can choose to be an asshole, but it is your choice. And it's not hooked into a greater consciousness. That's what I believe. That doesn't mean I want you to believe it. I want you to believe whatever brings you comfort, whatever whatever makes your life easier for you. What makes my life easier for me is being able to, I'd rather look at somebody and go, Phil's an asshole, rather than look at Phil and go, all Catholics are assholes or all Protestants are assholes. So I very much put all the weight in the individual and none of the weight on the collective. And
I love
that's
it.
what works for me.
I love it. I love it. I before the episodes before bringing you on was about the different souls' journey, and who do you find funny? Who's the funniest motherfucker you've ever worked with?
Oh, Jesus. I didn't get to work with him, but I got to spend a little bit of time with him because in two places where I was, he was the night before, and I flew in a night earlier both times to see him. And that was Jonathan Winters, literally the funniest human being I've ever been in the presence of. Just blisteringly funny with nothing. And both of those shows, both of them were, 45-minute shows. And I saw him a third time at Catch a Rising Star. That was a 20-minute show. All three of them were snowflakes. There was nothing repeated in any show. It was just what he made up on the spot. That's the funniest human being I've been around. Robin Williams was very close in that category, but not just. Jonathan Winters was a different stratosphere. And then there's Favorite. I got to work a couple of times with Carlin. That was amazing. I got to work, just a couple of times, with so many of the greats. And that was probably the best part about being in comedy when there was not a surplus of comedians like there is now. Now, pretty much, you go into a room of 10 people, 7 of them do stand-up.
Yeah, I know, right?
But when I started, there were 300 clubs and 200 comedians.
Yeah.
When I started. Yeah. And now it's just the opposite way. There's 1,000 clubs and 50,000 comedians.
Funny women, Jem.
There's a lot of them out there. Roseanne, brilliant. She lost her mind, but brilliant. I absolutely loved Roseanne. And watching her live was just so amazing. Joan was so amazing. Phyllis Diller, tremendously underrated. Hold on. I don't know what this is. Hold on. Hopefully this does it. Oh, okay. We have a power outage where I am right now. So that's what that was. Hopefully you're still there and I did not.
You are. I am.
Yeah. Phyllis Diller was amazing. Joan Rivers was amazing. Rita Rudner, not everyone's cup of tea, but I loved Rita. She was a great person to watch, or is a great person to watch. Among the newer, younger comics, there's a lot that are out there, but you kind of, your idols tend to be the ones you grew up watching as opposed to the ones you work with. So I know that there's a whole lot of new young funny women, but I'm still going to point to the classics when it comes to funny women.
No, I got you. Did you ever see Robin Williams?
I saw Robin Williams a bunch. I worked with Robin a ton. Used to work with him, just so many places out in San Francisco. He was all over New York. So yeah, I got to work with Robin. Luckily, got to work with Robin a lot.
All right, my friend. I can't thank you enough for doing this. And if we come up with more to talk about, I may ask you if you want to do it again. I know that I'm going to be doing other things from here, but I just appreciate you. Thank you.
No problem. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jim.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening and supporting Natural Born Redhead. If you follow the bouncing balls, please like and subscribe. If you know someone interested in sparing others grief and inciting joy, message me on Facebook or reach out via my website, Natural Born Redhead. J-Ma.